Hi everyone, my name is Nikita and welcome to my channel. I'm a full-time psychotherapist in Toronto, and on this channel we chat about diversity and inclusion of BIPOC stories as well as South Asian stories in places like literature as well as real life. So you can expect a lot of book recommendations, a lot of book-related videos, as well as videos of my new podcast called Brown People Problems, which is going to be coming on soon. So for this video, I wanted to talk about what are, in my opinion, 5 must-read books for every South Asian feminist. I know it's a really big proclamation, but obviously this is not an exhaustive list, and I'm sure it's going to be always evolving, but as of right now, these are on my list. Top 5 books that every South Asian feminist must read. And I have got them all here for you, precariously balancing in my hands. So to start off with, we'll start off with a really popular one. I'm sure you have heard of it by now. This book is everywhere, and that is Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. If you haven't seen this yet, I would be a little bit surprised, but Khaki is a feminist retelling of a villain from the Hindu epic Ramayana. So Ramayana is a story of like Lord Ram's sort of life and his exile and all of that. And if you have heard about it or if you have read about it, Kaikeyi is traditionally this evil stepmother, right? This sort of like villainous woman who is responsible for his exile, and she sort of like is known as this like massive manipulator who manipulates people into doing what she wants. And the way the story goes is she manipulates the king into sending Lord Ram into his exile, and so she has a lot of bad rep basically. But Vaishnavi Patel has written a retelling, a feminist retelling of Ramayana, and not necessarily entirely Ramayana, but sort of this story from Kaikeyi's perspective. And if you like feminist retellings, if you like strong female leads, if you like challenging the notion of the villainous woman and the evil stepmother, you would really love this. My mom has also read this book, and as someone who is quite religious, she actually also really appreciated it and she loved it, because my mom is also a feminist at heart. And I won't lie, there were parts when I was reading this book where it felt a little bit blasphemous to be reading it, to be honest, but I think this book does a really lovely job of really challenging the black and white ways in which we see good versus evil or right versus wrong. And it really kind of introduces this complex gray area in between, right? Because a lot of these stories that we've grown up with, a lot of these epics, they tend to have a very black and white, a very clear-cut version of what is right versus what is wrong. And Kaikeyi is typically seen in like the wrong category. But this is a really lovely book. It looks really big and intimidating. It's not so big and intimidating. Like I flew through this book. It's a very good read. And it's just a story about a female warrior. So if you like stuff like that, you would really love this retelling. For fantasy lovers, it does have a bit of a fantasy element as well to keep things interesting, which I appreciated. But really, like, the biggest thing for me in this book was just this powerful female character who has come through a lot of adversity, and you know, we get to hear her story a little bit as well. So that's my first recommendation. The next book that I have here is called A Good Wife by Samra Zafar. This is a really lovely book. Samra is from Toronto. She is a local woman, and this is her story of her life. She, you know, was married really young, I believe at the age of 18 or 19. And this story is just about her experience of what it is like to grow up a South Asian woman. In her particular case, she is Pakistani and she's Muslim, and so what it's like to kind of grow up within that cultural dynamic. And her story of, getting married young, and not only that, but also navigating a really abusive marriage. I don't want to give too much of it away because it's a really interesting book, but it's her kind of struggle through kind of being the wife that she never kind of signed up to be, you know, and it really makes you think about how subliminal and how subconscious a lot of our learnings are around cultural norms, around gender norms, around what is right versus wrong, expectations. And you know, the brown girl in you is really going to resonate with her struggle. Even if you have not been in a bad relationship, you will really resonate with her challenges of navigating a cultural system that in many ways is designed to keep women in really specific roles of peacekeepers, of self-sacrificers, and it does not give us a lot of autonomy in our own lives and in our own decision making. So this is really lovely. I actually learned about this book when I saw her speak live in person. She was speaking about domestic violence and how prevalent it is in the South Asian community, and she was speaking about her own story. So I decided to pick this up. Obviously, a bit of a trigger warning. There are some parts of this book, like you can imagine, that are a bit challenging to read through, but you know, this is overall a lovely story of resiliency, autonomy, a woman taking charge of her own life and challenging what has been done and creating new stories for herself. And it's got some like nice like pictures and stuff in here in addition to the text. You really kind of get to know her a little bit better because you can see her and you relate to her a lot better. It's really lovely. Give this a shot and support a local author. Okay, so I kind of cheated here a little bit because my next 3 books are from the same author. But you know, hear me out, these are all really great. So for my 3rd pick of a book that every South Asian feminist should read is a book called The Palace of Illusions. This is by Chitra Banerjee. I believe she's in the States, but this is a feminist retelling of the Mahabharata from the perspective of Draupadi, or I believe she was also known as Panchali. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing some of that. I always kind of struggle with these pronunciations of like older names, but this is a feminist retelling, like you can imagine. Very political, very dense, a lot of characters. And if you are familiar with the story of Mahabharata, of this epic, you would really appreciate this because there's a lot of other characters in here about whom you learn a little bit more as well. But you know, it's about the life of Draupadi and her navigating life in the court as a woman. And if you're forgetting who Draupadi was, she was the one who was married to the 5 brothers, the Pandavas, who were sort of the heroes in the epic. So this is just a lovely story about, you know, self-sacrifice that every woman has to go through and how the culture is designed to box women in certain categories. Next book I have here, again from the same author, this is called The Forest of Enchantments. This is, oh, look at this cover. This is so beautiful. I'm not the biggest fan of hardbacks. I love like a big floppy paperback, but this is just so beautiful. And even the inside is, oh, it's so pretty. I don't know if you can see very well, but it's got this beautiful intricate design, a beautiful spine. I just love a book that looks so good, but what's inside is also lovely. So I think you can probably tell by now that there's a theme here of retellings and mythological retellings, but this book, The Forest of Enchantments, is a retelling of the Ramayana from the perspective of Sita. And Sita was, you know, the wife of Lord Ram, and this is really interesting. It starts off with Sita from her childhood and as she gets married and what it's like for her to navigate the court, the politics, her exile, her kidnapping by Ravan. So it really kind of goes through her whole life and the aftermath of the exile as well. I don't want to give too much of it away, but obviously those who have read the epic will know. But this is a really, really lovely story. Like a couple of the other options I showed, I think this really challenges how we view women and how women are so easily misunderstood. So it really kind of challenges a lot of those typical narratives of the difficult woman, and it really gets you to critically examine the ways in which, you know, it's so ingrained in a lot of South Asian women to self-sacrifice, to stay silent, to not rock the boat. And obviously in like a fictional retelling, this book really captures all of those amazing themes and ideas. Some of the really major themes that really stood out to me in this book was women's expectations around how they can be loved by others, and at what point do women tap into their autonomy and really say that enough is enough, right? Because we know that one of the most prized characteristics of women in a lot of collectivistic cultures is like likability and subservience, and these are some qualities that are really socially rewarded in women, but those often come at the cost of self-sacrifice and silent suffering. So this book does a really good job of being relatable even today. Would highly recommend. And lastly, the fifth book on my list of top 5 books to be read by every South Asian feminist is a book called The Last Queen. Again, same author, Chitra Banerjee, Divakaruni. Again, oh, it's beautiful. What a beautiful book. The red and the purple, just, it's got a sword. Some people would really appreciate this reference. A beautiful gold color on the spine. It's just beautiful. I usually don't like hardbacks, like I said, but with these couple ones, I really like them. So The Last Queen, this is again a retelling, but unlike the other ones that are mythological retellings, this is a historical retelling. It's a feminist retelling of a real life woman called Jinda Kaur. She was the last queen of Punjab. She was the last and the youngest wife of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, as well as the mother of Dalip Singh, for those who know this piece of history. This book really follows Jinda Kaur from her birth pretty much to the very end, through her humble roots, through her marriage into royalty, through navigating court dynamics and court politics, through colonialism, through losing her son. So it's really just, in a way, it's this multi-generational story of a woman's life, and it's all from her perspective, which is what I really love about it. History just in general doesn't have enough of like a female voice. Like, we don't have so many female voices in history. We don't have much of history that's been told from the female perspective. So this is sort of a reimagination of what Jinda might have said if she could have written her own story. This is really a really powerful story. So if you like a strong female lead, you like strong women, you like examining like colonialism, you enjoy history, you would really love this, because it's a really remarkable story of a woman who comes from really humble roots and finds herself in sort of a situation that a situation of power and privilege that she never imagined she would really be in, and what it's like for her to navigate this. And of course, towards the end, we also see a lot of like the sad and brutal impact of colonialism, and how she navigates that. I, left this book feeling quite sort of patriotic, and that is for, like my culture and my country of origin, which is India. And that's not a feeling that I sadly have felt a lot in my life. So this is just lovely. It's a very evocative read, and you're gonna fly through this completely because the language in here is so flowy. Not a real word, but it just flows. The language in here flows. It's so beautifully written, and it's just very uncomplicated, straightforward type of a read. So you could probably finish this in a weekend if you wanted to. Highly recommend. So that's it, guys. Those are my 5 recommendations that, in my opinion, every South Asian feminist should read. If you've read any of these or if you plan to read them, please share your thoughts with me below. I haven't met too many people in my personal life who have read these books, and I would really love to chat more about them. So comments is a great place to do that. If you feel like there's some favorites of yours that aren't on this list and should be, I would love to hear about them. I would love to make this a series because, you know, my tastes are always evolving, and I would love to read more of similar books. So if you have any ideas, please leave them below. And again, subscribe and like this video if you would like to keep engaging in this type of content. Thanks, bye.